Hi, welcome to my video. I'm going to tell you about 6 mistakes that new woodworkers make when they're learning to be a woodworker. Mistake number 1, not having the right tools for the job. Now look, one of the most frustrating things to a new woodworker is the actual inability to be able to work with wood because of the inadequate tools that have been chosen for the job. Now don't get me wrong on this, you don't have to go out and spend thousands of dollars on tools and have a whole bunch of power equipment in your shop to do a basic job. My recommendation is this: go out and buy the tools that are necessary to accomplish the project that you have in mind. And also understand that not all tools are created equal. You generally do always get what you pay for, especially when it comes to woodworking tools. And I'm just going to be honest, a general rule of thumb, if the tool that you're looking to buy appears on Craigslist all the time, it may not be a very good tool. It's a great resource for finding tools, and I've even bought a lot of tools off of Craigslist. But any of those cheap websites that are constantly selling cheap garbage tools, you know, yeah, you can get the job done with them, but it might not be the best thing, and it might be better conserving your money for a later time to get maybe a little better tool. The bottom line is, good tools make your work easier, which will make your life happier, which will make your woodworking experience more enjoyable and help increase the longevity of your new woodworking endeavor. Point number 2. One of the biggest problems that I see new woodworkers run into is simply a lack of teaching or a lack of counsel. Now, if you're watching this video, you've either already learned this lesson that you need a good teacher, or you're about to learn it in your woodworking life. Now, YouTube has a lot of great teachers out there, and there's a lot of valuable information out there. But my personal belief is that the best teaching is always that which is hands-on. Now, the problem with the modern woodworking scene as I see it today is that it's either full of a bunch of young, irreverent hipsters that are just doing it for some sort of a fashion symbol, or it's old retired guys with a bunch of expendable income that can buy tools that you could never afford on your average salary. Even worse, if you have a desire for really the artistic side and elements of woodworking, you know, let's say wood turning or doing inlay work or sculpture art or things like that, there's practically nobody around anymore that could employ you full-time doing that, so you have to do it as a hobby. And most places want somebody with experience, and so they're not going to take someone inexperienced into the fields. A great teacher is really hard to find, so if you can find someone that is willing to take you aside, show you hands-on, person to person, hand to hand, how to build something and how to make these things that you want to teach yourself to make, I think that that person is invaluable. And you should pay them whatever they ask to show you this craft, to show you how to better yourself in your pathway to success as a woodworker. Mistake number 3, buying exotic wood. Now, this is one of those that I had to learn myself personally, and I've actually seen a lot of new woodworkers fall into this trap when they first get started. They want to go out and they start researching all different types of wood, and you know, they get beyond the oak and the cherry and the maple, and you know, they suddenly realize, wow, there's this whole world full of exotic wood out there, and wow, wouldn't it be neat? Wouldn't it be just really far out if I could get myself some really cool exotic wood and then make something out of that? And everyone would look at it and they'd be like, ah, look at my amazing wood. Well, I made that mistake too when I first started. Actually, I'd already been in furniture making and cabinet making for a good number of years, but the passion was dying for me, and so I decided that I needed something else to do in order to fulfill my passion for going forward with woodworking. And so I got into wood turning. So I went and I bought a little lathe, a little tabletop lathe, and I went out and I bought all the exotic wood that I could find that was within my price range, and I started turning all these little bowls and little spindles and things, all out of exotic wood. So I would go online, or I would try to find small shops that could carry a few of my little products that I made, and guess what? I didn't sell hardly any of them. I did sell a couple, but the majority of them went unsold. And the reason for that is that the market in most places does not understand the value of exotic wood. You know, when you start out with a $40 blank of wood, and by the time you put the time in to turn it and finish it, and you might have a $100 bowl that's maybe a 4 or 5 inch diameter bowl that's $100. Now, most people don't want to buy that. Also, working with exotic wood has its own distinct properties that you have to take into account. So if you're new and you're learning, there is going to be a giant learning curve with working with some of these woods. Here's an example of my own personal experience. I tried to make a bunch of chessboards one time. I made them out of wengi and bubinga, Brazilian tulip wood, all these different woods. And look what happened. It all cracked in the corners. Now there's a lot of reasons that this happened, but one of the main reasons is I didn't take moisture content into account. Never even crossed my mind that when I bought something online, a piece of bubinga in this case, made a chessboard out of it, that the moisture would change and then all the corners would crack. So, hard lesson learned on number 3, don't go into buying a bunch of expensive wood that you might be prone to making mistakes on. Mistake number 4, biting off more than you can chew. There's nothing better than when you finally have a sense of accomplishment, when you have completed a project and you've now realized I've made my first thing, and you can show it to people, and normally it's your friends and family and they're oohed and awed and, oh, I didn't know you had these abilities and I didn't know you could do this and this is so nice, and sometimes they're being flattering to your work because it's maybe not as nice looking as it will be in the future, but that first item, those first few things that you make are going to be very special. But with that said, let me just say this. Don't bite off more than you can chew. Pick a small project, something that takes a few tools, but won't require you to spend thousands to start up a new shop. Pick a small box. Pick a Christmas ornament or a small sign or something that you can do that would be relatively easy. Will still challenge you as a beginner, but will be quick enough that you can accomplish it. That way, after you've accomplished this first project, you'll get that sense of satisfaction, and it will give you a desire to go on and complete the next one. It also will keep the mockery away from your significant other when you go to him or her and tell them that you want a new power tool and you haven't even finished your first project that you tried to do. So there's always that factor to worry about. Start small with a small project. You'll get a sense of accomplishment from that and a sense of satisfaction that will give you the desire, the drive to move on to something else. There's nothing worse than picking something too big, having it unfinished, having dissatisfaction and not getting a sense of accomplishment, and then just giving up because you thought your first project was too hard. When in fact, most woodworking projects are very easy to start with, and you can increase your level of complexity as you go along. Number 5, this is something that I call experiential value over quality expectations. Managing expectations is a big one. Honestly, the first project that you make, it may not be the best looking thing, but the wisdom and the knowledge that you're going to gain from that is going to be of utmost and significant value as you go forward in your woodworking life. Now down the road, if you start to do it professionally, quality is going to be the number one thing, because a customer is not going to buy a piece of junk, and so you won't be in business very long if you can't build quality products. The value of the learning experience cannot be underestimated, and the learning experience never stops. And you actually create this kind of a cyclical nature in your learning process. As you learn more, you gain more wisdom, and so your products become better. As your products become better, you get a better sense of accomplishment and satisfaction, and then your customers will see that your product has become better and they will want to buy more and more. As the cyclical nature of accomplishment continues to increase, you'll find yourself more and more satisfied, experiencing more and more joy in the woodworking process. And that is really a reason I believe a lot of woodworkers that have been in the game for a long time still have satisfaction in what they're doing. Long after the thrill of all the newbiness wears off and you've learned how to use all the tools and you've learned how to be a little entrepreneurial and selling your early first projects, after all that is worn off, you have to keep challenging yourself. So what you have to measure in the beginning stages is the experiential value, or the wisdom that you're going to learn, and compare that to the quality of your product. You'll see that they go hand in hand, and as one increases, you'll see the enjoyment of the other increase as well. Finally, the 6th point, and probably the most important one. If you've seen any of my sawmilling videos on YouTube, you've probably seen that I am not the world's most safety conscious person. And some of that is just experiential. You know, I know what's comfortable for me. And other people might see it and they might say, oh, well, you're not doing this right, or you're not doing that right. And quite honestly, I care a little, but I don't care enough to change it, because experientially I know what works for me and what doesn't, and what's really practical in the moment and what's not. Look, I've worked for businesses that are OSHA standard crazy, and I think it's great that we have safety on all levels, but sometimes it's just so crazy sometimes having overly precautionary safety standards actually decrease productivity in the workforce. That's a whole nother topic for a whole nother day. But as I'm talking about you as a new woodworker, I've seen mainly two types of people when it comes to this. The first type of person is someone that is just super overconfident, they're kind of cocky about it, and so they rush headlong into a table saw or a bandsaw. It's running, and of course the inevitable happens. They injure themselves, they lose fingers, and then that's the end of that story. The other person that I see is likewise, but still the finality of their decision is also losing fingers. And that is the person that is just scared to death of the tool. I've seen people, new people, and they've never been around a table saw before. And I don't know what it is about the experience of this particular machine, but you know, it's one of the first ones that you learn to operate as a woodworker. And I've seen new guys, they hit that start button and the blade is causing that sound of the whirring in the air to go on. And they're looking down at this blade and it's just spinning, you know, usually around 5,000 RPM. And they have a very conscious awareness of what this tool could do to them. And it's almost like people that faint when they see blood, you know. They look at the tool and they just get scared and they're afraid to use it. If you're that scared to use it, you probably should not be around it, because you will injure yourself if you're that afraid of it. And I'm speaking mostly about power tools because, you know, it's going to be very hard to injure yourself with a hand plane unless maybe you drop it on your toe or something. But any tool that has a blade that is a moving object that can interfere with your flesh is going to be a problem. And so the proper posture, of course, is just that of respect. Sometimes it's referred to as a healthy fear for the tool, and I think that's adequate. So you want to be careful and you want to be respectful, but you also understand that these tools are meant to help you produce work, not to injure you. Now, even experienced woodworkers that have been woodworking for years and years have injured themselves at some point in some time. You'll find this is the case almost across the board. But by and large, there's very little injury associated with most woodworking as long as you're careful. Well, all right, folks, that is my 6 mistakes to avoid for beginning woodworkers. I hope that you have found this video somewhat informative for you. I hope that you found it somewhat helpful. I'm interested to know what you think. If you watch this video and there's something that you want to add, go ahead and put it in the comments section so that we can all read and enjoy the information together. If you want to see any of my other videos, I have lots of other ones on there. I'm starting to get quite a few. I have a combination of both sawmilling videos and woodworking videos on my YouTube page. So please watch those. And of course, if you like what you're seeing, go ahead and subscribe. Thanks for watching. Have a good day.